Once upon a time, in a small village, there was a man named Fred who was known for his incredible storytelling abilities. He could captivate anyone with his tales, but he had one major flaw. He had never told a joke that made anyone laugh. Determined to change this, Fred decided to travel to the city to find the funniest joke in the world. He believed that if he could just find this joke, he could finally make people laugh. Fred traveled for days, asking everyone he met about the funniest joke they knew. He visited comedy clubs, spoke with stand-up comedians, and even consulted with the town's wise old man, but no one could help him find the ultimate joke. Finally, one day Fred met an old jester who lived in a tiny cottage at the edge of the city. The jester was known for his wit and humor, and Fred hoped he could share the secret of the world's funniest joke. "Please, kind jester," Fred pleaded, "I've traveled far and wide in search of the funniest joke. Can you help me?" The jester looked at Fred thoughtfully and said, "I can tell you the funniest joke, but first you must promise me one thing. You cannot laugh. If you laugh, the joke will lose its power." Fred, excited and desperate, agreed. The jester then leaned in and whispered the joke into Fred's ear. It was long and intricate, filled with clever wordplay and hilarious scenarios. Fred listened intently, trying his hardest not to laugh. When the jester finished, Fred felt a huge smile creeping over his face, but he remembered his promise. He held it back with all his might, nodding appreciatively at the jester. "Now you must share this joke with the world," the jester said, "but remember, do not laugh." Fred thanked the jester profusely and rushed back to his village, eager to share the joke with his friends. That evening he gathered everyone in the town square and prepared to tell the joke. As he began to recount the tale, the villagers listened with rapt attention. Fred was animated, using gestures and facial expressions to enhance the story. Just as he reached the punchline, he felt the familiar urge to laugh bubbling up inside him. He tried to hold it back, but it was too late. He burst out laughing, unable to control himself. The villagers looked at him in confusion, and then one by one they started to laugh as well. Not quite sure why, but caught up in Fred's infectious joy. Suddenly the sky darkened, and a loud rumble echoed through the square. The villagers stopped laughing, and Fred looked around puzzled. Just then the jester appeared out of nowhere, shaking his head. "Fred, you broke your promise. I warned you what would happen if you laughed." The ground shook and a bright light enveloped the square. When the light faded, Fred found himself standing alone in a barren wasteland, with nothing but the echo of laughter in the distance. Confused and disappointed, he sat down on a rock, realizing he had been banished to a land where no one could ever laugh again. Just then, a voice called out from behind him. "Hey, what happened to you? Did you tell a joke?" Fred turned around to see a fellow traveler, and he couldn't help but smile. "Yeah, I did, but I laughed, and now I'm stuck here." The traveler chuckled. "Well, at least you found the funniest joke in the world." Once there was a stupidly large family with 100 children, all named 1, 2, 3, and so on. The child named 90 grew up to be a strict person with an average job and life. She got married and had 3 children, all of which were mischievous and often got into trouble. They became very clever. One day they were walking back from school together when they noticed an old dog on the side of the road slowly approaching them. There was no collar or sign of it already being someone's pet, and feeling pity for it, they took it to their house. Although the dog was very sweet, the children knew that their mom would never allow them to keep a dog, so they decided to name it This. That way they could talk about the dog without their mom knowing, like, "Have you checked on this?" or "We have to wash this today." They took care of the lovely old dog for about a year or 2 without their mom realizing. Then, on one tragic morning, they discovered that This had died. They wept as they buried her body, but there was nobody to tell, because only 90s kids will remember this. A bus full of housewives going on a picnic crashed with no survivors. Each husband cried for a week, but one continued for more than 2 weeks. When asked, he replied miserably, "My wife missed the bus. Subscribe and like if you liked the video, please."